All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're taking what might initially look like a totally overwhelming list of academic exam questions and turning it into a really cool behind-the-scenes look at how 3D characters are actually made. Have you ever watched a stunning animated film or played a beautifully crafted video game and wondered exactly how they build those living, breathing characters from absolutely nothing? Well, today, we're going to unpack that entire process from start to finish. Our starting line today is actually a couple pages of handwritten study notes from a course called EPP 401. If you squint at these, it's basically a massive barrage of highly technical terms and definitions. For a student cramming for an exam, this is a pretty daunting checklist. But for us, it's a treasure map. We're going to decode these scattered terms, pull them right off the page, and arrange them into a real-world, step-by-step studio production pipeline. To make sense of all this, we'll track a 3D asset's chronological journey through 4 crucial stages: the 3D modeling process, texturing shaders and lighting, rigging the character, and finally, animation and final rendering.
So, Stage 1, the 3D modeling process, building the base shape.
The whole process of 3D modeling really just boils down to connecting invisible dots in a digital space. You begin by grabbing these points called vertices, you connect those vertices with lines, form flat shapes called polygons, and literally build up a solid 3D shape step by step. You know, it's incredibly similar to sculpting with digital clay, but instead of pushing mud around, you're meticulously tweaking geometric points to nail down your character's silhouette.
When you're really in the thick of it, you're looking at a wireframe. This is the hollow cage you see before any solid surfaces get slapped on. Think of it like the steel scaffolding of a skyscraper. It lets 3D artists look straight through the model to make sure the foundational structure is rock solid before they even have to think about the exterior details.
Now, a super crucial part of that wireframe is topology, which is just the flow and arrangement of those lines. Clean, organized lines mean a character's face or body can bend later without totally breaking. Imagine drawing a grid on your elbow. When you bend your arm, some squares stretch, right? Others compress. If your digital topology doesn't flow like real human muscles, your character is going to crumple like a crushed soda can the second they try to smile or wave. Good topology is the absolute secret sauce for believable movement down the line. If you zoom way in on that topology, you'll hit the edge. An edge is literally just the connective tissue linking your individual vertices together. Without edges, you're just staring at a floating cloud of dots. The edges are what actually define things, like the sharp corner of a jawline or the really soft curve of an eyelid. And when you finally patch together all those vertices, edges, and flat polygon faces, boom, you get the mesh. The mesh is the fully realized solid shape of your 3D character. But at this stage, well, you basically just have a beautiful, perfectly sculpted gray statue. It's got shape, sure, but absolutely no life, no color, and zero material properties yet.
Before we can color it, we've got to clear up a major technical debate: NURBS versus polygons. The easiest way to grasp this is that polygons are like building with flat Lego blocks, making them perfect for characters and organic stuff. NURBS, on the other hand, use complex math curves to make perfectly smooth surfaces. It's kind of like bending pristine sheets of metal. They are amazing for designing a sleek sports car or industrial products, but terrible for trying to animate a human face.
That's exactly why polygon modeling is the undisputed king in software like Maya. It's incredibly intuitive when you're making a human, an animal, or an alien. They are super easy to edit and refine, and they are the absolute industry standard for video games. The software specifically loves shapes with 4 sides, called quads, because they animate predictably, but it can totally handle polygons with many sides, known as n-gons too.
All right, moving on to Stage 2, texturing, shaders, and lighting, painting and illuminating.
Okay, so a massive sticking point for beginners is the difference between textures and shaders. Best way to get it? Think of textures as the visual pattern, like printed wrapping paper. Shaders, on the other hand, are the physical material properties, like whether that paper is matte or glossy or metallic. You can slap a brick wall texture onto something, but you absolutely need a shader to tell the computer, hey, this brick shouldn't be shiny and reflective like a mirror. To actually get those 2D textures onto a 3D model, we use a process called UV mapping and unwrapping. I love this brilliantly simple analogy. It is exactly like taking a cardboard cereal box, cutting it along the seams, and laying it completely flat on a table so you can paint it. You literally have to tell the software exactly how to peel the skin off your character, lay it flat without stretching or distorting it, paint all the freckles and fabric details, and then wrap it perfectly back onto the 3D mesh. Once it's painted and given physical properties, we have to illuminate the scene.
You've got natural sources simulating the sun and sky for outdoor realism. Or you can play studio photographer using directional lights for infinite parallel shadows, point lights that shine everywhere like a bare bulb, or spotlights to highlight something specific. Lighting is really what creates the mood and atmosphere.
Which brings us to stage 3, rigging the character, giving it a skeleton.
So our character looks fantastic now, but it's frozen solid. This is where we jump into rigging. Imagine meticulously shoving a mechanical skeleton inside our digital mesh. A rigger goes in and adds joints, like shoulders, elbows, and knees, and wires up invisible strings and control handles. Without a rig, an animator can't make the character walk, talk, or breathe. It's the step that turns a static sculpture into a fully posable digital puppet.
This rigging pipeline generally hits 3 main beats. First, you build the bones. Then, you set up the controls. But the real magic, that happens during skinning. Skinning is basically gluing our 3D polygon mesh directly onto that new digital skeleton. The rigger has to mathematically dictate exactly how much the skin of the bicep bulges when the elbow joint bends. It takes an insane mix of anatomical knowledge and hardcore software skills.
To actually move this new skeleton, animators rely on 2 totally different control philosophies, IK and FK. Forward kinematics, or FK, works like a chain reaction. You rotate the shoulder, then the elbow, then the wrist. It's perfect for something like swinging arms during a walk. Inverse kinematics, or IK, works completely backward. You just grab the hand, pull it over to a coffee cup, and the computer automatically calculates how the elbow and shoulder should bend to reach it. Animators need both constantly to bring a character to life efficiently.
And finally, stage 4, animation and final rendering, bringing it to life.
With our fully rigged digital puppet ready to go, it is time for the acting. Animators are basically digital puppeteers. They plan out the scene and then pose the rig at very specific points in time called keyframes. Say, keyframe 1 is standing and keyframe 10 is midair during a jump. The software interpolates or calculates the frames in between. Sure, but the animator has to obsessively refine the timing and motion curves so the movement actually feels like it has weight, anticipation, and real-world physics.
At its core, animation is just the art of breathing life, emotion, and personality into the technical rig we just built. It's the ultimate illusion of life. Whether it's a super subtle eye dart, a heavy sigh, or a massive superhero landing, animation is the reason we actually feel an emotional connection to a mesh made entirely of polygons and math.
Then we hit the very last step, rendering. You can't exactly send a raw Maya file to a movie theater, right? Rendering is when the computer steps in to act as the physical camera. It painstakingly crunches all the insane mathematical data, the millions of polygons, the high-res textures, the bouncing light rays, and all that intricate animation data, and bakes it into the final, stunning 2D image or video file. Seriously, a single frame of a high-end animated movie can literally take dozens of hours just to render.
And there you have it, the end of the pipeline. It leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. These academic notes from EPP 401 aren't just dry software definitions you memorize to pass a test. They are the literal blueprints for bringing our wildest imaginations to life. By mastering this structure, from placing that very first vertex all the way to hitting render, artists are empowered to build entire universes. So, if mastering this complex pipeline is just the technical foundation, what incredible stories and worlds will human imagination build next? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep hardening, and I'll see you next time.